Welcome to the LDN Radio Show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. Today I'd like to welcome our guest Tracy from the United States. She's going to share her MCAS, POTS, rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia journey with us, and she's also got possible EDS. Thank you for joining us today, Tracy.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us, how long ago was it when you first noticed you had something wrong with you?
I was 39 and I'm 55, so that's almost 16 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what did you notice at that time?
It was a really unusual symptom. The sclera of both of my eyes started getting really inflamed. And it was really obvious. I was going to work and the sclera of my eyes looked bloodshot, almost like I had conjunctivitis.
Yeah.
And it kind of came and went. It would go away on one eye and come in on the other. And there was a lot of pressure and a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort with it. And when that cleared up, I started getting pain in one of my wrist joints. And I had checked with a doctor I worked with, and he said, yeah, that's a common joint to be affected in arthritis, but you're young, so it shouldn't be a problem. You probably just strained it. And by the end of the weekend, both ankles were swollen and I couldn't hold a book in bed at night to read.
Wow.
So it was a really fast progression.
Mm-hmm. And what about with MCAS, you can have so many different symptoms. So apart
Yes.
from the inflammation on the eye and the RA issues, did you have anything else noticeable at that time?
Noticeable at that time, just extremely fatigued, low-grade fever. I was an RN working in the recovery room at the hospital, and I, within weeks, couldn't get off the couch. So it was a real, a lot of nausea, a lot of stomach pain, but mostly swollen, sore joints, all over malaise, and just really not able to function with daily activities. I was a single mom with 2 daughters at the time. So my whole life kind of came to a screeching halt.
Yes, I can see that. So with the POTS side of it, did you have lots of fainting?
No, I didn't have fainting. I wasn't diagnosed with MCAS until I think it was about 6 years after I had my rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis. So when those symptoms showed up, they were really new, really different, and really alarming.
What were they?
It started with just intractable vomiting on random days, sometimes multiple days a month. I would always start early in the morning. It would wake me up from a sound sleep, and I would just be unable to stop vomiting for hours and hours. And then it would take me a couple days to recover. And when it first started happening, I thought, oh, I had the flu. I ate something wrong. I was actually in the emergency department on and off for IV fluids and Zofran and CAT scans. And one of the doctors at urgent care had asked me if I'd ever been tested for food allergies, which was really the first time anybody ever brought that up for me. And I had a few episodes, really severe episodes that really were linked around eating fish. And so that was the first trigger that I realized I had was to fish, any kind of fish, shellfish, fish. And that's when I started to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I was just becoming a lot sicker than I had been since my first diagnosis. And I really felt compelled to try to figure out what was going on. So I did a lot of research on histamine intolerance, which is what I thought it was. So for a long time, I stopped eating seafood. And then my doctor sent me to an allergist, and they did all my allergy testing, and it was all negative. And they sent me home with an EpiPen and told me not to eat fish, which was okay for a couple of weeks until I accidentally ate fish. And then my tongue and mouth and lips started to swell, my face. And that's when I think it was a little bit more of an alarm with the doctors and stuff that there was really something going on with me, even though all of my allergy testing and essentially most of my labs have always been normal.
Hmm. That seems to be the case with many people. They can go years with absolutely no sign of anything wrong with them.
I think that is truly one of the most maddening parts of this, because we are feeling so terrible, but because somebody's looking at lab values and they're like, well, this looks great, and it's just you know, you have to look at the patient too, and how they're living and how they're feeling. There's something that's, used as a guideline, but then you have to bring it down to, like, you know, how is this person's quality of life?
Exactly. So before you had all the answers to find the right path back to health, what would you say your quality of life was like? Could you give us an indication of what a typical day for you was like at your worst?
Well, I'm better, but I'm definitely not healthy by any stretch of the imagination. And I still deal with MCAS on a regular basis, but I think understanding my body better. But I think at the absolute worst that it was, I was about 114 pounds. I had pretty much lost a majority of foods that I had ever eaten in my life. I had terrible anxiety. I felt really alone, really scared because nobody really knew what was going on with me. I was trying to fight for my Social Security disability, and they had never heard of MCAS. So I was fighting with that. And I was just so tired and sick. And I just kept thinking, how am I going to get through this if I can't get better, and nobody knows what's going on? But I also, at the time I started with my symptoms, I was also started on Remicade, excuse me, for the rheumatoid arthritis. And I ended up getting extremely sick, and developing medication induced lupus and palmar plantar pustulosis. So I had these just erupting pustules on the palms of my hands and the soles of my feet with, you know, um, white blood cell material in them. I couldn't use my hands. I couldn't walk on my feet. I just At that point, I mean, I was just in a bedroom for months and going on years at that point. It wasn't until they figured out that the Remicade was making me sicker and it stopped. But since then, it's just there's constantly new triggers. They never end. When I have them listed out and I try to avoid them, but it's inevitable that at one point or another I'm going to come across something that I'm now having a problem with that I didn't in the past.
Okay. And you said about the rheumatoid arthritis in your joints. What about the fibromyalgia? How did that affect you?
The fibromyalgia, when it first started, my first symptom was that it was painful to soap up my thighs in the shower. That was like the number one symptom that I had. And it's just when your skin hurts to even be touched. I'd had pain since the rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis, but it was more, joint, soft tissue, that type of thing. But when this started, it was, you know, really, again, not getting off the couch, napping all day, not being able to go to the grocery store, just not being able to participate in my life, starting to take more days off from work. Um, my kids are coming up to my bedroom to have conversations with me because that's where I am. Um, you know,
What about the
It was
fibro fog?
the brain fog is almost one of the worst. Um, it was one of the reasons I actually, because I worked as a critical care nurse in the PACU and in the cardiac catheterization lab, and it was really the brain fog that took over. My inability to be able to do that job. Not only was I physically starting to fall apart and wearing lead every day to work, but at the same time, I was, just working like excruciating hours. And I finally just wasn't able to keep up anymore. And I stopped working in 2012 after a 15-year career in nursing.
Oh, that's such a shame. So, what medication are you actually taking now?
Well, for the rheumatoid arthritis, I use Plaquenil.
Hmm.
And I don't really take anything for the fibromyalgia, but my mast cell treatment is pretty extensive. Do you want to know exactly or just a ballpark?
No, just you can share with us whatever you like. If you want to name them,
Okay.
name them.
I do. I take two Allegra in the morning, a Pepsid, and two quercetin, and a Singulair. And then in the evening, I take two Zyrtec, one Pepsid, two quercetin. I take that's when I take my Plaquenil, and I use Benadryl and dicyclomine as breakthrough. Benadryl is actually my go-to rescue drug.
Okay.
So like yesterday where I lived, there was so much pollen. It was a sunny day. It was beautiful. And I wanted to stay healthy enough to be able to do this interview today. So I, ended up staying inside instead of going out into the pollen because I would be down for a couple of days with a brain fog, swollen face, swollen lips, stomach ache. Um, it's just, I almost have to do the pollen in little increments now.
So, how long would you say you could stay outside before it affects you? Like 10 minutes or longer?
Oh, no, 10 minutes or so. If I'm doing something with my family and it's a day where I want to be outside with my family and doing something, I'll take Benadryl around the clock and then I will actually it will take me a long time to recover when I get home. Because with the mast cell, it's not typically the reaction that's the worst. It's the aftermath of all the mediators that are still in your body coursing through. People see you maybe during the reaction, but they don't see the aftermath. They don't see the 3 days. It used to be multiple days of not knowing what time it is, not knowing what day it is, taking Benadryl around the clock, just being so out of it that you almost don't even know how to take care of yourself. It's a really, really scary place to be. And it just breaks my heart to think of anybody else going through this. My sister right now is having mast cell reactions, and this is almost even harder for me to watch her go through it.
Oh, yes. What would you say to other people who have spent years trying to get answers to questions?
Oh, I have so much to say. I think first and foremost, the most important thing is just I believe you. Anything that anybody tells me that's going on with their bodies, I believe them because I have experienced so much stuff, and it's sad that we abandon our what we know to be true because somebody else tells us that's not possible. So that's my first piece of advice. I believe you. This is happening in your body. Whatever the labs say, whatever the doctor said, um, so don't let that be a deterrent. Really read, learn as much as you can. A lot of it has to do with education. It has to do with understanding the way that MCAS works. It has to do with avoiding triggers. But on top of all of those really important, you know, first line of defense type of situations, in the long term, it's really important to lower your stress. Make sure you have rest periods throughout the body because part of your immune system being overactive is your nervous system being overactive because they actually talk to one another. So I spend a lot of time trying to do breathing exercises or, I'm not afraid to cancel something and say, I need to rest today, because I know that for me, those are imperative things that I have to figure out how to work into my life today in order for me to feel the best that I can.
Mhm.
So, a lot of that has to do with, there also are, you can start to avoid triggers and you can take over the counter antihistamines without a doctor's order. So, like, there is relief to be had for some people who don't have access to a doctor or don't um, have a doctor that believes them or listens. Quercetin is a supplement that's sold over the counter. It's found in broccoli and other foods. So I think it's a bioflavonoid. And so there are some things, I try to encourage people to take steps for their own health. They don't need permission, they don't need a doctor's order, they don't need a diagnosis. They can start to take steps to feel better by eliminating those triggers, lowering your stress, being gentle with yourself about being able to rest. And I think with that, I'm having more good days, I guess. So that's a win for me.
Mhm.
I went from having no days to, you know, multiple good days a month where I can see friends or have company over or be outside.
It must be difficult to exercise if you can't go outside.
Exercise is really, for so many reasons, with the MCAS. Um, Exercising is such a difficult thing because the benefits are amazing, but in a lot of ways, especially if you've been as sick as I was, and where a lot of people are when you're just starting, that just seems impossible and can make you feel worse, because with that exertion, you can actually re-trigger yourself and keep having a reaction. Or if there's chemical mediators in your body already and you start exercising or those are going to start moving around and having effects on different systems of the body. So usually people with MCAS, if they have POTS, if they get up to exercise, they feel sick. It's the opposite. I mean, I don't think anybody really loves to exercise, but for us, it's like it's it's the feeling anybody else would be like, oh, I'm sick, I have to go to bed. That's how we feel after we've started exercising. And so it becomes really difficult because after a couple of years of being in bed and being immobile and being on the second floor of my house because I couldn't do stairs, um, I realized that being deconditioned has only made all of these things I have going on worse. It's not caused by any stretch of the imagination, but your movement, intentional movement, is required to help each one of these systems of the body start to work properly again. Even balance, my balance was off for years. I used to joke around about bumping into walls and, all this stuff. And I would just fall down for no reason. And once I started practicing balance exercises, I didn't realize that you have to practice balance to be able to balance. It's like when you're chronically ill, each time you lose a function or an activity, you just think it's gone forever. You don't know that you're going to be able to get it back. And I've just started to realize that I can get strong again. I can work on balance. It's just going to look different. It's going to be at my pace, and I'm going to do it in a way that I'm not injured and, back in bed for another couple of months. It's kind of a dance between trying to keep yourself healthy enough to live, um, but not hiding in a box. I
Mhm.
mean, I travel internationally with my husband, and people are always like, how do you do that? And I'm like, because I'm stubborn and I'm not going to not go, but I make a lot of concessions. I do a lot of planning. I've had some terrible experiences. That almost made me afraid to go back out and do it again. But I just don't ever want to be afraid to go out and live my life, even though I have to spend a majority of it tending to myself like I'm a China doll.
Well, thank you so much for having shared your experience with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I was really looking forward to this.
I'm Dr. Leonard Weinstock, a guy who's been prescribing LDN since 2005, and I've seen the wonders. And I keep on seeing them, especially in hard to diagnose conditions. They're not that hard to do, but once you know about Mast Cell Activation Syndrome, Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia Syndrome, and Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, you'll find that 17% of your friends or relatives have one or more of these conditions, and you can help them. We're making a documentary to wake up the medical community, to educate the population, but we need funding. So please fund whatever you can afford, no matter how little. www.mcasfund.com. That's mcasfund.com.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.